Hi everyone. About to make going on a road trip. Let's call it that. So in case you guys haven't heard, Trudeau is just charged with PayPal from Ireland. Your Prime Minister in Ireland can also be charged. So this precedence by the Michelle Rempel talks about it in the in her video. The link is above. I forget who found Trudeau guilty. The what's it called? I forget. Anyway, Trudeau's been found guilty, and now that helps us file criminal charges against him, because there's keep in mind there's different courts. So in one level of court in Parliament, Trudeau was found guilty. Now that helps us bring criminal charges against Trudeau because it helps set the precedence. Because he's found guilty in one court, it makes it easier to bring it to another court. In this case, a criminal court. Randy says, throw the traitor in jail. I don't know what a criminal court judge would say. And here, I know I've spoke to Paul Losty from Ireland before about having, like, because I could file criminal charges against leaders in Ireland. And I say that because there's entire families in Ireland that are committing suicide. The government is helping the banks. The banks are evicting families. And families without work or a place to live. They've had families, entire families, many families commit suicide in Ireland. And I have a problem with that. So I knew it could be done, and there's different ways to file charges and bring charges in a different country. And who is it that speaks? Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about his new social media platform is for freedom of speech. I'm not sure when the platform gets released, but Dr. Peterson says the only courts he would, a Canadian doctor says the only courts he would listen to have his content removed for freedom of speech is a U.S. court. That he would not listen to a Canadian court that tells him to remove content from his social media platform. So that's one thing that confirms what I thought, that a different country could hear criminal charges by or against anybody. And I say these criminal charges should be held in a court outside against Trudeau should be held in a court outside of Canada so that no Canadian judges can be intimidated or coerced into letting Trudeau off the hook. Here's another piece that falls in the same puzzle, or to help shape the same puzzle, is where a Mexican crook was brought to a U.S. court, trialed in the U.S., and jailed in the U.S., even though he was never a U.S. citizen, never lived in the U.S. This Mexican was trialed and jailed in the U.S. I think, I'm not sure how yet. Okay, the reason I've learned about this Mexican that was trialed and jailed in the U.S., it was on a documentary I watched recently in about the last week. So that tells me that we can have Trudeau trialed in the U.S. and that would ensure that our Canadian courts do not let Trudeau off the hook. And okay, I just realized the ethics commissioner is the one who found Trudeau guilty. So, in the title I said that we could file 8 charges against Trudeau, but that's not correct. I just now realized there's only 7 charges we can file against Trudeau for obstruction of justice. This is a charge I'd already considered for the breach or obstruction of justice in the SNC Lavalin case. But what helps is the ethics commissioner found Trudeau guilty of breaching ethics laws, which helps us bring it to criminal court. What I'm not sure is how we're going to bring this to a U.S. court. Sorry, I can't read the comments. I'm driving to my next appointment. I just thought I would do what I can here and now to give an update, and we need your help. There's at least 3 people that have volunteered and are able to help make sure that we can get this done, but we need more people to help. Here's one thing. If you can help research how to bring cases in the U.S. court, I know it can be done. That's the best way to hold somebody accountable. If you can help do some research, I can send me a message in a private message, and I'll send you the name of the Mexican criminal who was trialed in the U.S. And the other thing I would really like is somebody who can help research different laws. A lot of people have talked about researching, well, a lot of people have talked about charging Trudeau for treason. With the RCMP file number, the RCMP file number, Tom Quigan's investigation. That is for funding a terrorist organization. We can what we can do is I forgot what I was gonna say. So researching. The other thing I would like some help researching, and this could help the Irish as well, and the French. And a lot of soldiers are aware about the Geneva Convention. And it's a criminal offense to breach the Geneva Convention. And we have the Geneva Convention written in law in Canada, and France has its own Geneva Convention written in law, and it's a criminal offense for anybody to breach these military-style laws of human rights of persons in war, and that includes civil war. So I think some of us would agree that France is in a civil war against its government. I would say it's my feeling that Ireland is in a civil war against its government. I say that because the government in the Geneva Convention, prisoners of war are allowed to have basic rights to shelter, water, food, safety. The Irish government does not give its citizens the basic rights to shelter. They're giving money to the banks, and the banks are evicting families families are committing suicide. That, in my view, is a breach of the Geneva Convention, and the Irish government could be charged with breaching rules of the Geneva Convention Act. In Canada, we could do the same, but I don't know if that's reasonable. In Ireland, I think that's reasonable because families have been committing suicide. I just got a message from somebody saying they would volunteer and help with this. I just as I'm checking my map here. But so I have to thank everybody who wants to help. What's I think is important is studying the law, and I've done lots of that. But what I need help with is specific parts of the law. So if you want to help study the Geneva Convention Act of Canada, I can send you the link. If you wanted to study parts of like how to send Trudeau in a US court to make sure that our judges don't throw it out, I can send you different parts of that. But somebody needs to read it several times and make sense of it in a way to help me read those specific parts so that I don't have to read all of it. And that would help. Besides the Geneva Convention Act of Canada, there's other, I can't remember what they are now. The other one is the Money Laundering and Financing of Terrorism Act. There's at least one charge in regards to Tom Quigan's investigation. In regards to Tom Quigan's investigation of Trudeau funding terrorism, of the RCMP file number 18-004212, I think is the number, the RCMP file number. It would be reasonable to charge Trudeau with at least one breach of the Funding Terrorism Act. Here's the thing though, Tom Quigan already gave all the evidence for that. So what I would ask a judge when I present these charges, what I would ask a judge is to have an independent investigation, a separate investigation from Tom Quigan. that's offered to help, so thanks for watching, everyone. Sorry I haven't been able to read anyone's comments, but so, just to recap, I'm on my way to my next appointment, and so there is an article I want to include in the link above, but I couldn't do it when I started the live, so I'll do that later. And it's from the National Post or something like that. I'll include that above. I should include links to the law on funding money laundering and funding terrorism act. I should include the link on the Geneva Convention Act so that our friends in Ireland, like Paul Losty, who was watching earlier, Paul Losty happens to be from Ireland, and I know that I feel it would be appropriate to charge the Irish government with breaches of the Geneva Convention Act, which, because its government is helping banks evict families, and in the Geneva Convention you have 4 basic human rights, and that's one is to shelter, the other is to shelter, safety. I named 4 of them earlier, but now I'm questioning some of them. Anyway, that's why I would like your help to review some of those laws, because in Canada we have the Geneva Convention Act, but I don't think it's appropriate to charge Trudeau with breaches of the Geneva Convention. But in Ireland, many and several entire families have committed suicide, and I think it's appropriate that the Irish, or we can help the Irish, or somebody can help the Irish, file charges against its government for breaching the Geneva Convention Act laws that says they have the basic right to shelter. As troops, if we have prisoners of war, we have to, if we detain prisoners of war, we have to provide them with basic necessities of life, such as shelter, safety. France, I think everybody would agree they're in a civil war against its government. And as a soldier, I feel, or former soldier, I feel that its government is clearly, the French government is clearly breaching human rights law, the Geneva Convention rules of war. If they're in a civil war, I think that qualifies to file charges against the French government, and in this case, the Irish government. So I would like somebody to help me study and I'll file the charges for breaching the Funding Terrorism Act, but I would like some help. Read the entire act to narrow down the exact part we need, and what helps our case to file criminal charges is that Trudeau today was found guilty by the Ethics Commissioner for obstruction of justice. So the Ethics Court is a different court, which gives us grounds to file criminal charges against Trudeau. In the comment or in the title above, I said that there was 8 breaches, but earlier I realized one of them is not appropriate or a duplication of. Trudeau maybe only breached once laws for obstruction of justice in the SNC-Lavalin case, not twice, and it may be more than that, but that's one case, not 2 cases. The SNC-Lavalin case is 1 case, so it's reasonable to charge him at least once the investigation, and we can urge the retired Chief Justice of Canada, Beverly McLaughlin, to conduct an independent investigation. She's written at least twice of judicial independence, or the importance of judicial independence, so she would be appropriate. And so we'll also need links and printed to include copies of retired Chief Justice of Canada Beverly McLaughlin's submissions on judicial independence, to give weight to the reason why it needs to be Beverly McLaughlin who investigates Trudeau, an independent investigation, and not only on his actions in obstruction of justice, but she could also investigate Trudeau for the Tom Quigan matter, where Trudeau is and has been funding a terrorist organization. The reason I say it needs to be Beverly McLaughlin is because she just finished an investigation of a BC legislative matter. 2 persons in the BC legislature were charged with fraud. Somebody in the BC legislature hired a law firm to investigate those 2 persons, to investigate and prosecute those 2 persons. Once they concluded their investigation, they then had What's the word I'm looking for? They then had, the BC legislature then had Beverly McLaughlin conduct an independent investigation of this firm's investigation to confirm that what they found is in fact correct, because it's an important matter. It requires, like, it's not just some criminal What else can I say? Is that about it? So this would not be, so I'm not exactly, so the reason, so I'm not making this up. Like, I'm not, the reason I say Beverly McLaughlin retired to a U.S. court. I know it can be done. It's been done before. I'm not sure how. So we need your help. Thanks everyone for watching. I've already gone over most of the details twice now. I've covered all the details and then I recapped best I could. And I'm about to go into another appointment here. So before I get into the next town or city, I should let everybody go. In fact, let's do that now. So I'll just pull over here. I think there's a good spot coming up. And yeah, let's do that. I'm just going to go read over some of the comments here quick. And Just gonna go over some of the comments. And hi everyone, hi Justin, thanks for watching. I'm just about to turn off the camera so I can walk into my next appointment. That's contacting Tom is the hard part. Having Tom involved in further litigation against Trudeau is gonna be easy. I know several people who know Tom, but I agree with you, Cindy. Trudeau should be audited and Justin Trudeau needs to be audited of the Trudeau Foundation. I agree, but I'm not sure how to get that done, and I don't know. I think I would focus on the 7 matters of obstruction of justice, 4 breaches of judicial independence, and the Tom Quiggin investigation, where it's found that Trudeau is funding a terrorist organization. I think what's also really important is to make sure that it goes to a U.S. court, to make sure that there's a level of bias removed, to make sure that it's trialed effectively. So I think I don't want to get these charges thrown out because of a flu judge, because there are flu judges. So I'm just going through some of the comments here before I shut off. I'm a little early for my appointment, so I've got a few minutes to spare. I agree. I agree, Nikki. They're all traitors to the people. There's a few good ones. Yeah. I don't know what I would say about about politicians. But yesterday on my way to the I come to think that, you know, I think most cops are good cops, but because they're not accountable, it only takes a handful of bad cops and then it affects the rest of them. I'm not sure what to say about politicians, but I think okay, so what I'm going to say on politicians is the same thing I would say on lawyers. There's maybe a handful of really good lawyers. Most are there for the money. They're there because they're greedy. And I don't know what to say about politicians, but I think politicians are similar as lawyers. There might be a handful of good politicians, but I would say most of them are greedy. Enjoy your days off, Nikki. See, Glenn, I was thinking about that and talking about that with the Patriot that came with me to Hamilton City Council yesterday. I think on Saudis, Trudeau Sr. had lots to do with helping the Chinese, And now the Chinese are almost a major world power when it comes to at least finance and economy. They're building railroads in Africa and all this stuff, and it's built. They own buildings all over the world, and it's. I don't think they need any more help, and I think that's what Trudeau Jr. is trying to do with Saudi, is they're trying to make him a world power, and we need to look after our own oil, our own interests first, as most patriots say. I'm not against helping other countries, but what Trudeau's doing is unreasonable. And Jen Birchman says he needs to be stripped of all his power and checkbook taken away from him. Thing is, we can do that. We have the power to do that. But politicians have been telling us that we don't. That's the problem. In Hamilton, people are told they're banned, like if they break the law, that they're banned from attending City Hall. Well, the trouble with that is the law says we have the freedom of speech to hold the government accountable. If the Hamilton City Hall is banning people, that breaches our rights to hold them accountable. So how are we going to hold them accountable if they're stopping us from holding them accountable? They're breaching our rights. We have the right to hold them accountable in all levels of a court. We have the power to remove Trudeau. We could urge in the Referendum Act, it says a group. It doesn't say 20 people, it doesn't say 10, it doesn't say 500, it doesn't say 2. Well, most anybody would say a group should at least require 2 people. And it doesn't say people, it doesn't say an organization, it just says a group. Any group, the Yellow Vest group of any number, the Patriots group of any number, the Legion of any number of persons, what's another group? A union can urge a referendum. In the Referendum Act, Section 2 says any group. And Section 3 says what's the word? The word is governor. Each province has a governor. We also have a governor at the federal level. Any group can appeal to the governor to hold a referendum. In the referendum, it can have Trudeau removed. The problem is politicians will prevent us. That's the problem. We have the right to. The problem is those that uphold the law, like my lawyer says. I agree, Janet, it's the best news ever. I'm just going to read through some of these comments here. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to shut the camera off now. I'm going to go to my appointment. I hope to, Janet says Peterson's the best. I hope to watch him soon. He's going on a tour again, and I hope to watch Peterson. Okay. Dominic says, hey, hey, ho, ho. Let me finish by saying Justin Trudeau's got to go. Accountability, accountability, accountability.